Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with lies they eat like comfort food? To disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims. Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the populace with ilkas and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible holding phony temper Bibles like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was normal to have to prove a claim you make. And folks really feel ashamed expressing content that was fake. It's not to say we never make mistakes. It's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road. The reason stay strapped with logic and facts. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact to help the truth grow. Question every claim, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road. The reason.
Hey, welcome to Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century. I'm your host, Scott Maddox.
And I'm Brendan McAuliffe.
And today we're going to be talking about what I like to call the atheist agenda. Basically, it's like all the different ways that atheists and secularists and skeptics are taking over the world, making life hard on Christians and Muslims.
World domination?
Yeah, world domination, whether you like it or not. And we're going to go real in-depth.
But first we're going to talk about the news. So Wegmans, the chain, apparently refused to bake a cake for our friends at the ex-Muslims of North America. Happened right here in Virginia. Luckily, somebody made a mistake up in the hierarchy of Wegmans executives, issued an apology, apparently baked the cake for free, and it's all set now. But it's a little troubling hearing the initial reaction was to refuse to bake a cake.
Did they give any reasoning why they didn't want to bake it? Were they afraid of what the Muslims might do if they knew that ex-Muslims existed and were eating pastries?
I think their PR people have kind of suppressed all the reasons why they said they did it. I think what they're doing now is just saying we made a mistake. Let's try to fix it. Which good on them, but it's a little weird.
Yeah, there's been I don't know if rash is the right word. What's like a word for multiple cakes?
String.
Yeah, string of cake issues in recent years.
These bakers are more politicized than I thought they would be.
Yeah, it feels very wag of the dog, or wag the doggish.
So did you have anything you wanted to talk about for the news?
Yeah. So Tony Robbins, he's a kind of woo-ish
self-help kind of guy.
Yeah.
Pretty much harmless, but...
Yeah, he looks like he's had plastic surgery. I don't know why I said that. But he's famous for having people walk over hot coals at his events. And there is one in Houston, I believe?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Houston, Texas, where he had thousands of people in attendance, and dozens, or 30, 40 or so, ended up getting injured from walking over these hot coals barefoot. I mean, there's probably waivers involved, and don't sue Tony Robbins if you get hurt. And it's duh. Hot coals are hot, and your feet are sensitive. So,
I think this is the type of thing that's really easy to laugh at in hindsight, but at the time, it's kind of like people do this stuff all the time for self-help, that whole guru-y, lead me to a better life, all that stuff.
People do this all the time at Tony Robbins events. This is not the first story I've heard about people getting injured at a Tony Robbins event.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't pay him much attention.
I probably heard about it from Friendly Atheist or something.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like low-hanging fruit.
When it pops up, you talk about them?
Yeah. And it's kind of we don't know exactly what he's telling these people, whether it's you put your mind to it, you won't feel the pain, I don't know.
I think it's about doing something the way I heard it was doing something you didn't think you could do at the start of this event. It's kind of like this, you're capable of achieving your goals if you want it enough. And it's not just wanting it. He's not Deepak Chopra. It's not like The Secret where he's your brain is quantumly entangled with the universe, and if you want it, it suddenly appears. I still don't know how that works. Yeah. I don't know how quantum physics works, so May just be on my end. And then you wanted to talk about Russia and their Scientology crackdown, was it?
Yeah. So this is a few days ago. Russian security service conducted a raid on the Church of Scientology. They raided over a dozen locations linked to the church in the latest step of a long-running battle between authorities and the U.S.-based organization. The Federal Security Service said they conducted simultaneous searches at 14 addresses in Moscow and St. Petersburg as part of an apparent investigation into alleged illegal business dealings by the Church of Scientology in Russia's second city. Objects and documents were found and seized that proved the version of the investigators about the marketing functions for goods and services of the Church of Scientology of St. Petersburg in violation of the law.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with them. Scientology gives a weird kind of...
They're a scam.
Yeah.
And it, kind of in the same way
totally.
that prosperity gospel sort of sells salvation or blessings through promoting tithing a certain percentage or as much seed money as you want to be blessed.
Yeah.
Scientology, they have different levels of, enlightenment or
it's a lot
freedom
of pain.
from volcano alien ghosts that are troubling you.
No, but the weird thing is, because it's Russia, I'm a little skeptical of how Russia does its business against its quote enemies.
Yeah,
and so
it could just be like a political thing where, because Putin's Russia is very tied in with the
Orthodox Church.
Yeah, the Russian Orthodox Church. Putin's very big on he's a Christian. Russian white identity is very tied in with being Christian, even though their attendance is not very big.
Yeah, no, but this is the kind of thing that's where you hate the people that are committing, that are cracking down on Scientology, but I also hate Scientology, so I'm not sure who I'm rooting for in this fight.
And it's this is a separation of church and, it's more of a freedom of religion aspect, because Scientology in America at least is recognized as a tax-exempt religious organization. I'm assuming it must be in Russia also. It's just that maybe this time around they did something in violation of their rules.
Abroad, Scientology is really kind of seen as more of a sham than it is here, because the thing, here it's
very American, and we know a lot about it. I think the general public knows a lot about it.
And then Europe sees America go through this thing, and they're like, "What are you guys talking about? What's a thetan? What's an L. Ron Hubbard? I don't understand."
Yeah.
And then the Scientologists come to other countries. And they're like, no, we don't believe anything you say.
Yeah, it's we're still in that first or second generation phase where we know what Scientology is, or our parents knew what it was, so we're not going to buy into it. But there's children of people who join for whatever reason, and their kids don't know a world outside of Scientology. They think it's real.
There's that really good both book and documentary. So it was called Going Clear. Really good. It was on HBO, and the book was even better because it goes into the history of Scientology, who L. Ron Hubbard was, why he was sailing the boat, why he was arrested on a boat, allegedly, it was because it was for tax evasion, and wherever he came into port, he would immediately be arrested. So it sounds like a bad movie. It just comes off as this
really people believe this, people did these things.
Movie. It's absolutely funny.
Stranger than fiction,
right?
Reality, that is. So just a little preview of what the atheist agenda is going to be before the commercial break. This is kind of the daily routine of the atheist agenda. around 6 a.m., a lot of us wake up. 6:01, we'll cry about creationism in schools, and 6:30, we'll eat a baby for breakfast. 6:45, shower, because, cleanliness is next to godliness. 7 a.m., Skype with Satan and discuss world domination. 7:30 a.m., drive to work and sing along with Ozzy. 8 a.m., scowl and hiss while walking to desk. Noon, get a latte and a gluten-free pastry for lunch. 5 p.m., drive home, listen to Metallica. 6 p.m., eat another baby. I don't know where we're getting these babies from. 9 p.m., watch a ridiculous documentary about atheism. And 10 p.m., light black candles and pray to the Dark Lord.
And then when do we go to bed? Does it say?
That's early. 10 p.m.?
Yeah, it is early. It's also really, waking up at 6 a.m. is also kind of
very early, yeah.
At least for me. All right.
So
I find nothing wrong with that. It seems to kind of get who I am.
Yeah.
Right?
We shower.
I mean, I don't
atheists are very clean people.
I don't do the
much
gluten.
like hobbits.
I don't do the gluten-free thing.
Yeah, I like gluten.
Yeah.
I like gluten in my beer. I like gluten in my gluten products.
I'm lactose intolerant, so I have to do the whole soy milk thing, which, but
yeah,
it's not bad.
There's some good soys.
Yeah. I'm crying every day. It is what it is.
Eventually, you get to a point where you've cried about creationism so much that you have no more tears to cry. You're just dehydrated and you need a Gatorade.
Dry sobs.
Or
dry, just horrible noises.
Yeah, people are like, did you hurt yourself?
Were you stabbed?
Yeah. So
so let's go to our PSAs, and we'll see you after that.
A critical thinker is in a frame of mind of always questioning everything, including things they don't necessarily want to question. You may have done some research and satisfied yourself on a position you're sure is right. Good. Now, after a month or two of that, go look at some research that opposes your point of view or challenges the position you've taken. You can even look into it with the idea of poking holes in their arguments if you want, but it would be better to just have an open mind and read it as though you'd never heard or seen anything on the issue before. You may be very surprised what you learn, and if you're doing this right, you will be. Always be open to opposing points of view and counter arguments. That's what critical thinking is all about. And now you know.
Good.
Homemade noodles. Marty, stop it! Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. It reminds me. I've been thinking maybe we should try a new form of birth control. I heard about this one. It's called the IUD, intrauterine device. Or we could try the patch on your arm. Actually, I think that one goes on your butt.
BEDSIDER.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
What do you think, though? Arm or the butt?
There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week, the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
All right, welcome back.
Howdy. So, Atheist Agenda, let's get down to it. How are we taking over the world? What are we doing? I mean, a lot of this stuff is active, some of it's passive. I don't know, where do we begin? There's so many different things.
And I mean, how do you kind of differentiate the atheist agenda from just people talking about philosophy just as in an everyday sense? Like, say, like you and I just talk about like Nietzsche or something like that. Nietzsche famously said, "God is dead."
Right.
Would that be then counted as a part of the atheist agenda, or is that?
Yeah, I would say yeah. Like the fact that someone like Nietzsche can say God is dead and not get killed.
Nietzsche's dead.
Well, but he didn't get killed like right away by God. That's like, that's a bad sign for religion. And then another thing is like none of these religious people killed him for saying it. So it's like, he must have known that it was safe at the time to say something like that. There was a Time magazine front cover, one of the most famous ones ever. If you like, check out the Wikipedia page. It's like, I think it posed the question, "Is God dead?" And that's like, that grinded the gears of so many Christian conservatives that, they're like, "Is God dead? No, of course he's not dead." And they're like, "These are all the reasons why he's not dead." And, Time magazine,
Yeah, but then we have kind of this sense of most of Christianity these days, especially in America, is kind of this Jesus. He's good.
Plus nothing.
He's the way, the life. But you don't have to be a jerk.
People say these things, but it's like it's just pop culture of Christianity in America and other places where Christians don't even know their own religion. They don't read their own Bible. They don't attend church. They're not getting the same level of indoctrination as someone like I did, going to church multi-days per week for over 20 years.
I mean that's rough. That's the intensive side of it. But I mean, if you ask a lot of people what God is, they're going to say things like God's love, God is peace, God just is looking out for me.
It's hippie stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Well, then if you ask them like, well, what about like children that are starving to death?
God's that.
Is God starving children? Or, well, no, that's not quite what I mean.
Or he's the hope. That they'll have a meal.
And then it's like, well, we as people cause children to be starving in Africa, so it's our fault.
Yeah, victim blaming or passing the blame. It's never God's fault.
Yeah.
Like, people in the flood, they got what they deserved.
All of them.
But as you have the world becoming a better place, world becoming a less violent place, having higher levels of food security, just basic security, a house, they don't have to worry about stepping on a landmine or getting killed by a militia, then, there's less that you have to look to God for at the beginning of the day or the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's basically what was it Steven Pinker put out in the book Better Angels of Our Nature.
Yep.
Which the title takes from, I believe it was a Abraham Lincoln quote. And it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. It's a dense, thick book. It's going to take you like a week to get through it if that's all you're doing. But it is one of the most well-researched, statistically valid, well thought out books right now about where the world is going, what it's like right now, contrary to like popular belief. Because if you read a lot of news headlines, it's like we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
And then you step into your house and you don't die.
And the thing about the news is everything looks so terrible, but it's news because these are the bad things that are happening. They're not the norm.
abnormal.
Yeah, they're abnormal. The norm is you walk down the street and you don't get killed.
True. So, well, how does that all fit into the atheist agenda? Because, I mean,
a safer world is a world that doesn't have as much religion. And if
you're
that's
saying,
our goal, then
so you're saying that a more secular world or a more secular country leads to less violence and less mayhem.
It's
so
both.
To speak?
It's both things, I think. Like, if we were a Islamic nation,
theocratic.
Yeah, theocratic. Then we'd probably have more religious population. You might have more fundamentalist movements within that. I mean, it's not necessarily the case, but there's complex situations in countries where the terrorists and ISIS are happening.
Doesn't the statistics and such that Pinker lays out state that, and I've read it with others, like Michael Shermer's book, The Moral Arc. Great, another really thick book. It lays out the fact that the more secular you get, the more peaceful the nation becomes. There's a lot of variables that go into what peaceful means, what it entails, all that stuff.
And I mean, like, all these religious texts, they're not completely peaceful. There are violent messages within them. There's wars in the name of God. There's killing people in the name of God in both, the Quran and the Bible and, the Torah. I don't know about Dianetics, whether that has it, but
I don't know if Dianetics has any sort of kill yourself in the name or kill others in the name of Scientology.
Right, but I mean, there's other harmful doctrines within pretty much any religion.
Well, yeah, because it takes away one's autonomy to carry out. Yeah, exactly, to make decisions.
It's harmful. The problem isn't religion. It's that the problem is religion falls under a harmful ideology category. Stalinist communism falls under a harmful ideology category. Just like, and it's atheistic, but it's still harmful ideology.
Well, the thing was, Stalin replaced God with the state. It turned into worship from Orthodox Christianity to worship of authoritarianistic communism, and so it became this sense of don't worship the Sky Daddy, worship me because I'm the one who's helping the people's populace, whatever it was that he said.
But just to add to the Russia discussion, it was also that the Marxists, they have Jewish guys or ethnically Jewish guys in the Marxist movement, and therefore the Marxist movement is specifically not racist, and the Tsarist sympathizers, the White Army, they were anti-Jewish, and so it's kind of like people that are cool with Jews versus people that aren't cool with Jews.
I mean, there's a lot of true, but I mean, I don't think not being anti-Semitic is any kind of, you don't win something for being a good person just because you don't like Jews. Because I mean, there's a lot in Stalinist Russia. It wasn't necessarily hatred of Jews, but it was hatred of the West, capitalism, all this stuff like that, and traitors to the cause, like Trotsky and the people that followed him, especially when Stalin was during the purges. The fact that the people hated them with fanaticism because they went against the very idea of the state.
But take trials and tribulations of World War II and stuff, and communist revolution in Russia, and then take that into the present. You've got we had a knee-jerk Christian reaction in America and to the atheistic communists, and I think there was a pushback where in Christian culture where it's like they didn't want a witch hunt. And
well, they did have a witch hunt. I mean,
yeah, they did.
McCarthyism is I think America got more religious because of communism, in this kind of sense of the Stalinists are atheists, so we've got to be the opposite of that. So we've got to rally behind God, we've got to rally behind Jesus, and that's what we'll use as kind of this push and this like unifier.
But I think it backfired
against
a bit
communism.
With now we've got this example of McCarthyism to like look back to and point at and be like, this was crazy, and it's a slippery slope of what if it's your religion that they don't like, or your political party that they don't like. No one wants to be on trial in front of the next Joe McCarthy.
Yeah, exactly. It makes the case for secularism. It's the fact that just because there's the quote. It was they came for the Jews, but I was not Jewish, so I was not afraid. They came for the gays, but I wasn't gay, so I was not afraid. They came for the artists. They came for me. And it was the story of this a German who was grabbed by the Nazis, saying that it was this gradual thing that you could kind of see, but until it affected him, it didn't really pop up on his radar that he should be afraid.
Right.
And so it's that you need to watch out for always push back against particular groups that always kind of come up. Well, tyranny, theocracy, all that.
Don't be a bystander.
Yeah. All that's required for evil to win is for good people to do nothing. It's not.
So like, I think another change in like culture, especially American culture, is like we've made this shift from polite culture where it's like, everyone is like Christian, but you don't talk about it, and everything is like more homogeneous, and you've got your Protestant denominations, and they're like an in-group, and they don't really mix with like Catholics, and now America's become like very pluralistic, and there's lots of mixing, and everyone is very up and out about what they believe and their opinions on everything. Everyone's way more opinionated than they used to be. A notable gang leader, Charles M. Schultz of the Peanuts gang, he once said that polite folk, there's three things that they don't discuss. It's religion, politics, and the existence or non-existence of the Great Pumpkin. And I think, I've been to plenty of parties, in the last few decades where, religion is a topic of discussion, and it's enjoyable, and nobody dies. And there's disagreements, of course, or, we discuss politics. I'll go to like family picnics, and it's like, conservatives and liberals, they're having at it. Nobody's dying.
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing is that's the rise of social media. Is the fact that everyone's now expected to have an opinion on everything, even though they haven't quite looked into it or thought about it. And
but that's a start.
And I don't necessarily know if that's like a good start, just saying, I think this without actually questioning whether it's true. I think then that's the interesting thing about the kind of the cultural movement of atheism versus the I don't want to sound pompous, but like the intellectual side of it, where people who like to have grandiose debates and like to sit back in their armchairs and drink tea and smoke cigars and talk about God. Yeah. But then there's people who just kind of want to say, I don't know whether this is the right way to do things, and they go from there.
And you've got like YouTube and the internet and podcasts where you can easily access things like debates or videos or cartoons that are made by atheists, giving us voices where people wouldn't normally know where to go to hear such things, or to know that they're not alone in the universe. But also, we've got debates where we've got contrasting viewpoints discussing issues. And I think debates are great, whether or not they're changing a person's mind, but they're like, introducing the viewers and listeners to all the different like talking points and different perspectives on certain issues, so that they can like try and have a more fully formed opinion on things, and maybe they'll hear something that's piques their interest and they'll want to do more research on it, or like they'll learn something and they'll be like, well, I never heard of that, or like, well, that changes everything. Or
well, that's the interesting thing about atheism, and that's actually what I really enjoy about it. It's the fact that all it says is that there's not a God. Atheism itself
that we don't
states
believe
that
in God.
Yeah, we don't believe in a God. So we can talk about anything else.
Yeah.
And the fact is,
not have to worry about God killing us.
And you don't have to worry about infighting, because within atheists, it's not like I kind of sort of believe in God, and so you're wrong. No, it's you do or you don't, and so it's
overlap with free thought.
Precisely,
movement.
And then it often, because that's what I think leads to this rise in discussion of politics. It's the fact that we've kind of pushed religion kind of into a corner and brought politics and social questions into like the spotlight, where we ask questions about what directly influence us, because we realize our next door neighbor might be a Jew and doesn't really like want to talk about Protestants versus Catholics. Like that's he has no dog in that fight. So if you want to talk about things like gun control or marriage equality or
tax
law or taxes or something like that, it is more likely to affect them, and they're more likely to become more involved.
Yeah, and there's a lot of overlap between many political issues and religion or religious positions on things. Religion in general is usually more conservative on a lot of things. They may say like they're pro helping the poor, but a lot of the time the people who are the most religious are also the most anti-welfare things, like just payments to poor families or food stamps.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it stems a lot from the social, I don't know if I can say this word, retardation of the retardation of social acceptabilities. So you don't allow people to make their own choices, do what they want, because you've got this overarching kind of sword over your head of religion saying that, okay, no, you can't hold hands with a guy if you can't have sex out of wedlock. You can't do all these things. You can't look at porn. They often deal with sex for some weird reason.
Well, it's because you wouldn't have people if you didn't have sex, and so sex is like super duper central to the human experience. And so if they can control sex and things related to that, then they can control people. I don't know if they did that math, or it just kind of evolved towards that, natural selection. It
definitely seems kind of planned in the long run, saying that, well, if we kind of control people at this angle, they'll need us to help deal with it.
It's like, oh, you had sex out of wedlock, you got to come to the Catholic Church and apologize in front of the priest to God and ask for forgiveness. It's like, shame. It's like, who wants shame if you don't have to put up with that?
Yeah, no, it's a way to kind of cage like the conscious to say I should feel bad. Why? I don't really know.
Shame and guilt are like the tools, the mental tools that these churches are, and religion in general is using to, and they're doing it to make you not do things. They're doing it to make you do other things. They want you to feel shame for receiving any kind of welfare. They want you to feel shame for not paying enough money into the church coffers.
I think it's a lot the fact that they use shame and guilt because they don't have the sword. Because in the Middle Ages, you didn't have to shame somebody for having sex out of wedlock. You just killed them. You burn them, whatever method they decided to do that day. That was the way they dealt with the problem. And so you get to this stage now where you can't quite have roaming gangs of like armed men who kill adulterers. You have people who shun them in society, make them feel bad, make them feel guilty about what they've done.
And the difference between those times and these better times are that there's the separation of church and state now, where before it was like monarchies and they're propped up by the church and church is propped up by the monarchies, and so it's kind of like, anyone who's not following the church, I think they've got in their head that these people are revolutionaries. They don't follow the rules as given to them, and so they're dangerous. They're thinking too freely, or they're not playing by the rules that they're expected to play by. And as you have the rise of secular governments and democracies, you see people are forming their own rules and laws and governments, and they're not forming them in such a way that they want people to be harmed or put to death for what they believe or don't believe anymore. For the most part.
Depends upon where you go in the world.
Yeah, it does. But also, like, where you go in the world. If you go to a country that has Islamic Republic in the name, like there's Islamic Republic of Pakistan or something like that, that sends a message to everyone in the country who knows the full name of the country that, this is the state religion, this is the one true religion, and anyone who's not in it is not in it to win it.
Yeah, exactly. But because that's where kind of the idea of secularism and atheism comes about from. It was during like the French Revolution and the Enlightenment period, in which people said, "Wait, God told you were king? Why didn't God tell us you were king?
Yeah.
Like,
or tell me I'm a peasant.
We just have to take your word that you're in charge. That doesn't quite seem right."
And they questioned it.
And then you question
enough
God.
people question it that it undermined the authority, however undeserved it was, of these governments. And you can do this at a macro level or a micro level. You can undermine a church's authority or a pastor's authority by just asking simple questions like, how do you know the Bible is true? How do you know God is real? And they're going to be thrown for a loop, or they're going to give you some BS response. And with practice, you can learn to pick up on this stuff and be able to ask effective follow-up questions to eventually get you to the place where I'm going to tell you you're going to get is they're going to be like, why do you ask so many questions? Or you just have to have faith. Or go read your Bible some more. They'll give you some response like that, and that's the red flag.
And that's the thing about faith. And like I am trying this like a personal, if I'm using the word correctly, jihad.
Internal struggle.
Yeah, to get rid of like using the word belief kind of in my everyday vocabulary. Like I'm not going to say like I believe the bus will get here at 12:30. I'm going to say I think it's going to arrive at 12:30 because the sign says 12:25, but I know this bus is going to be late.
Right.
So
based on evidence, past experience, actual evidence.
I try not to believe in anything on its own. On its own. So, and that's I think what we need to do, and what's part of the, I know we joke about the atheist agenda, but I think that's what it is. It's this awakening of thinking about, okay, why do I think this way? Why am I going to act that way? Okay, it's because of X, Y, and Z. Right. And then why is X, Y, and Z important? And then you break down why you think the way you do and why you do things. And that's why there's been a huge cultural shift. That's why they're like the LGBT movement has gained such momentum so quickly.
And it's like with the atheist agenda, it's like, why do we have an agenda at all? Why do we care? We care about safety, livelihood, rights, freedoms, not just for us, but across the board, equal freedom and rights for everybody, whether you're man, woman, child, adult, elderly, young. gay, lesbian, straight, bi, transgender, queer, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, Jew, Scientologist, Raelian, topless or shirted.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the interesting thing about what religion does, is that religion often finds a way to oppress people within itself. Is the fact that I'm sure there are a lot of gay Muslims, but I can't imagine what that's like, going in every day knowing that everyone around you, your family probably doesn't like who you are. Your Muslim friends might not like who you are. They might. I've never been a Muslim, so I'm not going to claim to know that stuff. But it's what's been called like the minorities within the minorities. It's the fact that the oppression of women, the oppression of children, the oppression of the people who haven't come up with this religious idea and used it to control them.
And if you go in any church, there's a multitude of sets of beliefs and individual beliefs on any given theological topic. You take one pew and you've got 20 people sitting on it or whatever, they're all gonna give you a different answer about like the age of the earth or the nature of God, or
you're definitely gonna get 20 different answers about what God is. It's a personal thing. It's turned from this like powerful like stepdad kind of figure into this he's whatever I want him to be.
But exposing this reality that hey, you've got all these people in a church and they don't believe the same thing. They're not actually as unified and united as the pastor or the church organization wants everyone to think they are. That steals some glory from churches. And if there's some issue like abortion or same-sex marriage or gay rights that you support but your pastor doesn't support or your parents don't support, that can drive a rift between you and that organized body. And the more people that walk out of any specific church or denomination, the less power they have. The less money you put in the plate, the less power they have.
And that's something I do have to say. We as atheists need to provide, because the thing is, churches provide that sense of community. It's the fact that they don't all agree on what God is, but they're all there together.
There are community centers.
Oh yeah, exactly.
We need to use them.
I'm part of the Secular Student Alliance. They're at almost every major college in the country. But there's all sorts of groups. There's book club. There's like secular book clubs. There's
internet clubs.
Drinking skeptically. It's where they
meme societies.
But and so like, what are some of the things you enjoyed like going to, other than Road to Reason?
I like going to the movies.
You like going to the movies?
I like going to the pub.
Do you like to go? Do you do like God's Not Dead watch parties type of deal?
I mean, a party of two.
Party of two?
Yeah. I actually
and Jesus?
No, me and my girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I enjoy watching these films and riffing on them, and it's funny to me.
Definitely, and I think there is.
But it's a autoimmune response on their part that they even have to make a movie called God's Not Dead. They're afraid. They're running scared. Their tail is between their legs.
That I can't quite claim to know what's in the head of Kevin Sorbo or the directors of God's Not Dead, but like. That's the thing that we need to grasp, because the thing is, as soon as people start leaving the church, there are people who are floating around not knowing what to do and what groups to get a part of. So what would you, are there any big groups that you know of, like Facebook groups?
Facebook, period.
Facebook, period, so just look up like
just
atheist
people
groups.
Being on the internet and having these discussions, or being in a forum where they are hit with, they have friends now who are proudly flying rainbow flags in their profile pic, and they see that all up and down their feed, and you can't ignore it without just getting off of Facebook, period. Or you hear it in the news, whereas growing like in the 90s as a kid, like you rarely heard LGBT news stories, I don't think, or I don't remember. And I watched news a lot back then too. And, you know, you're hearing about that, you know, their rights, you know, women's rights, all these different groups, the more rights they get, the more I think it helps the atheist movement and takes power away from religion.
Yeah, and it is definitely important to keep in mind the ideas of like dogmatic thought in general, because the thing is, you may be an atheist, but you can be a serial killer. No, that's a terrible analogy. No, I don't know. What am I trying to say?
And there's a cultural shift.
I'm sorry. That's what I was trying to think of. Always question what strongly held ideas that you have. Like you may be a strong as can be atheist, but karma. You've got like a kind of guilty pleasure, kind of feeling karma works, and. Do you think there's a place for that within the community, or do you think that
divine retribution through karma? No.
Okay.
But the idea that people are held accountable for their actions, I think, is, you know, a good thing to promote. It's like, you know, if you break the law, you're going to go to jail. It's not going to be like, oh, let God figure it out.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I was more asking like people who believe in certain cultural phenomena that quite aren't held up by facts or evidence or whatever.
Well, like, you know, the better our education systems do in teaching kids about science, and you know, if the government is working effectively and like protecting consumers from woo type things or Tony Robbins and his hot coals, then the atheist agenda is being accomplished.
Well, couldn't the atheist agenda then be kind of let people have the ability to kind of realize that, okay, snake oil is snake oil, rather than saying, no, you can't sell snake oil? Kind of tell people, be like, look out for various problems.
I think, well, that's why you have, the rules are written so that it's like, you know, if you claim that it's going to do this, you have to have scientific evidence. And more people are demanding evidence-based medicine. You know, they want to know what their likelihood of survival or getting better is now. They want to know how soon it's supposed to work. And if you don't have evidence to back that up, you're just pulling stuff out of your nether regions.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the funny phenomena that's going around is the California, very much known for it being not religious. Mm-hmm. It's not a Southern Christian Baptist kind of state, but they're one of the highest kind of rates of not vaccinating their kids.
Yeah.
And so it's the sense of, I mean, you can be an atheist, you can be agnostic, you can take a critical look at religion and God, but then kind of fall flat when it comes to other fields. Mm-hmm. And so I think, and at least in my opinion, that's what the atheist agenda, so to speak, should be. It's where you take rationality and you take skepticism and say apply it to everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to think that, okay, we should, abortions should be completely free, legal for everybody. Like that doesn't, you don't have to necessarily think that to be an atheist. You can say, find your own opinion.
But it's about, you know, like you listen to a debate on abortion, it's like, well, why are some groups against abortion? Why are some in favor of abortion rights? And, you know, if you can break it down in such a way that, you know, there are religious reasons, but if religion, you know, you don't believe in religion, then those reasonings fall away, and then it just comes down to, you know, there isn't a good reason to have it outlawed.
Well, no, there's a lot.
Or there's like a spectrum of like.
I find a lot of people, a lot of atheists who don't like abortion. They don't agree with it, and so I mean, there's a sense of not wanting to alienate everyone within the, like, certain minorities within the community.
Right, but it's reason based. You know, it's not because a zygote is. It's like religion is very like all or nothing, and this is a well-known like tactic in any argument where, you know, you try and bring on as many people and make it the topic as the point as simple as possible. So you say, like, you know, zygotes are babies, 1 month is a baby, all of it's a baby, and a baby, you know, instead of a fetus, it's all marketing. So there's no spectrum and nuance involved, and that's ignoring the reality.
Well, how would you measure reality?
I would say that there's different stages of development, despite what Monty Python says, every sperm is not sacred.
Well, I'm not saying you cut it off there, but I mean, you can have really.
But some people would
saying that, okay,
push the line all the way back there.
But because the fetus becomes a baby, is it not a human? Because it has the capability, and if it continues on doing what it's doing without interruption, it'll become a fully fledged human being.
Right, but I mean, a lot of things do that. You know, hydrogen eventually becomes a person.
No, not of its own. Like, not if it continues what it's doing. If hydrogen continues on its own path, it's not definitely going to become a human being. Without, like, if you didn't interrupt hydrogen, it's not going to turn into a human being. If you had a fetus and you supplied it with all its nutrients and the things it needed to survive, it would become a human being. Like, if you and that's where a lot of that debate comes from.
But would you
don't necessarily want us to turn into
But would you agree that abortion rights add to religion losing power?
Oh no, I definitely think people. I think
just
abortion
having
should
the option of it
should be the option. No, but there's a lot of
because I know people who feel like further tied to the church once they have a kid, they have a kid out of wedlock and now they feel guilty, and then the church kind of they'll bully them into not getting an abortion, and then they become like some superstar in the church because they're like, I didn't get an abortion and now I'm your poster child.
Yeah, well,
I know people like that.
Well, yeah, no, and the thing is, the church then props up and supports them. And so I'm not. What I'm saying is basically that as atheists and whatnot, as a group, we shouldn't necessarily kind of go after and attack other atheists within our own circle. Like, we should say that, okay, you're an atheist, we can mingle, but not kind of immediately scrub them because of like a certain philosophical stance that they have.
Yeah, and it's all about free thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a point that needs to be remembered.
There was a book that came out about a year or so ago by Ryan Cragen that I wanted to mention. It's called How to Defeat Religion in 10 Easy Steps, and he talks about some ways that he believes, religion is going away, or things that can be done to make it go away. And they cover topics as varied as like education, welfare, sex, science, capitalism, Christmas and holidays, and I just want to quickly touch on some of these. Sex, religion tries to control sex. Atheist agenda is saying, don't worry, have sex, guilt-free. Science, we've got the evidence. We're promoting the idea that things should be based on evidence, and if there is a God, where's the evidence? If something works or doesn't work, where's the evidence? Capitalism, people are caring more about, having fun, buying things, spending money, than, they basically want to do anything that's fun or entertaining over going to church. So, church is, becoming very unpopular. Like the only thing that people would rather do than not go to church is maybe watch TV on a boring Sunday afternoon. But
yeah, my question is, you mentioned Christmas. So is there a war on Christmas, as Fox News claims, or?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you explain that then? And what is it, 6 minutes we got?
There's a war on the Christian Christmas, and it's the secular Christmas against the Christian Christmas. So
okay. So we're
emphasizing the presents and de-emphasizing the Jesus.
Okay,
the baby
taking
Jesus.
Christ out of Christmas?
Yeah, so it's like Christmas lights, no Krish, or what do they call it? Baby Jesus displays.
The manger.
Yeah, it's Rudolph the
Nativity.
Red-Nosed Reindeer, not Silent Night.
Okay. Well, no,
Yeah.
Silent Night's a beautiful song. You don't necessarily have to take the music away from it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. No, there's a lot of great stuff.
Scott, this is the Great Pumpkin. And I want you to know that when you do not get candy this Halloween, it will be because you do not have faith.
Oh. That sucks.
That's a shame. All right. So we talked about Christmas. What are the other things on that list?
Marijuana legalization. I mean, I figure if people are smoking weed, they're not going to church. I mean, do the math, right? I'm not saying that should happen. I'm just saying that that's what happens. And it's looking like that'll probably happen within the next couple of years or decades. I don't know. There's an article in Huffington Post where it said like atheism is going to defeat religion by 2038. Whatever that means, I don't know. But like statistics in countries like England or Netherlands and Sweden and all these European socialist countries where they have huge safety nets that will catch you if you fall or sneeze. And they're like the least religious in the world. You know, Iceland is has tons of atheists. It takes 80 years to build a church there, and nobody attends it once it's finished.
I did hear something about Iceland, though. They are worried about the elves. Did you see that news report?
Oh.
Yeah, there's a group of the church
Nobody's perfect.
of the elves. And they were saying you can't build they didn't want a road being built in a certain area because it was going to trample over it was like an Elvish church or Elvish, not Elvis.
We got about 1 minute.
We got 1 minute left.
So basically, ultimately, the atheist agenda is a peace movement, despite what you may have heard about activists and others who speak out against religion being so-called militant atheists. Religion says that religion is worth dying for or worth killing for. I'm here to tell you that it just isn't. Don't believe the hype. I'm not willing to die for atheism, and I'm certainly not willing to kill or harm people for it. You don't win hearts and minds through violence or indoctrinating children. That's called cheating, so stop it. Without assaults on human rights, women's rights, homosexual rights, children's rights, and the separation of church and state, there would be no atheist agenda.